Last night, I was laying in my bed, all nice and cozy, drifting off into a deep and well-deserved slumber, when BOOM! Inspiration struck me like lightning to a rod. Who is actually smarter, Brainstorm or Grey Matter? I shit you not, the idea of this video concept has never struck me before, nor have I ever really stopped to even think about it in my daily life, but that's probably just because I don't really care for either of these aliens, outside of the novelty of them not just being forearms number 20 and 21. So, as you can probably tell by the title, thumbnail, and the opening monologue made purely to stretch this video out to the 8-minute minimum required for monetization, today we're going to be clashing cortexes in an attempt to deduce who exactly is riding that big brain high. Brainstorm or Grey Matter? Cerebrocrustaceans or Galvans? Caked up crabs or And no, we're not going to be using power scaling or in-universe feats in order to determine which one is smarter, but rather logic and biology. As well as probably a few leaps of logic as well, because hey, we're talking about fictional alien lifeforms here. So without further ado, let's get right into it. It's hero time! So to start us off, one big thing that we need to really crack down on is the actual size of these aliens' brains, and why this may not skew the odds in the direction that you think. If we look at Brainstorm and Grey Matter, the size difference alone is incredibly vast, especially with how inconsistently sized Brainstorm is. You may think that this gives Brainstorm the advantage in this debate, as a bigger brain must mean that you're smarter, right? Well, not necessarily. Sure, most animals that aren't particularly big also aren't particularly bright when it comes to, you know, animals of greater size. But this does not necessarily prove the rule. After all, lab mice are some of the smarter animals out there, and compared to, say, a chimpanzee, the size difference is ridiculous. On top of that, honeybees are actually capable of solving basic arithmetic, and their brains are only 2 cubic millimeters in size, which rounds out to about 0.0002% of the human brain's total size. All of this is to say, a bigger brain does not necessarily mean an automatic win in terms of increased intellect, and in fact, it can actually be a detriment. You see, the larger a brain is, the further that a synaptic signal has to travel in order to reach the destination. For those who don't know, synaptic signals of the brain are basically what allows the brain to control other parts of the body, with the signals travelling through the nerves in order to reach their destination and give the orders to whatever body part it may be. But due to the fact that a bigger brain is, well, bigger, it means that the synaptic signals have to travel further in order to reach their destination, meaning that it takes longer for the brain to think and to control the body. While this doesn't necessarily hinder intellectual value, it does hinder the rate at which one can think and control their body. Think of it like input lag in a video game. You're the brain giving off the orders, the controller is the synaptic signal, the game is the body. You're reacting accordingly to the situation, putting in the appropriate commands, but the body is responding maybe even a full second or so after the order is given, which can be quite disorienting and, depending on the game, can even result in a game over or penalty. Similarly, if there is more surface area for synaptic signals to travel across, then there will be an increased lag between thought and action within an individual. We actually even see this within Brainstorm himself in Omniverse, where he does certainly possess an incredibly high intellect and his ability to perform calculations, think ahead, and anticipate are undoubtedly impressive, but he takes several seconds in order to string out one of these thought chains, whereas Grey Matter, comparatively, seems to be able to carry out thought processes of similar complexity and length in a much shorter period of time, which is likely the result of the fact that he is much smaller and therefore his brain's synaptic signals don't have to travel as far in order to reach the rest of the body, which results in both a greater reaction time and a greater thinking speed. More evidence to back this up would be looking at the average reaction times of both humans and insects. With our relatively large brains, humans typically have around a 0.25 second reaction time to a visual stimulus, but insects, with their much smaller brains that are more compact in nature, are much faster, with the average housefly's visual reaction time being about 20 milliseconds, which is why they're just so fast and why it's so hard to catch or swat them, because their brains are just capable of processing information and acting on that information at a much greater rate than that of humans. Though, again, thought speed does not necessarily dictate thought quality. Intelligence is not dictated by brain size, but rather by brain activity, with certain parts of the brain being responsible for intelligence, at least on Earth-native life. While we can't say the same undoubtedly for alien life, such as the cerebrocrustaceans and Galvans, especially considering that cerebrocrustaceans have been shown to have an anomalous skeletal structure compared to Earth crustaceans, and the fact that Galvans possess 2 brains in place of 1, we can say for the sake of theorycraft that this is more than likely to be the case. With this in mind, we actually find ourselves at another intellectual stalemate. See, a cerebrocrustacean's brain is absolutely massive, And while that likely does limit the rate of thought, it could also imply the strength of its intellectual capabilities. If the specific parts of a cerebrocrustacean's brain that are responsible for intelligence are particularly robust and are especially honed, then the fact that these parts of the brain are larger would also mean that they would be smarter. As if the region of the brain is as big as it is powerful, then that would mean that they are undoubtedly smarter than humans, and would possess some significant intellectual capability as a result. The more you think about something, the easier it is for your brain to recall it. This is, at least partially from my understanding, what associates with memory. If you think about something a lot, you can recall it easier, hence why repetition leads to prolonged memory on the subject. Fun fact, this is also why people who play Pokemon have better memory skills than other people. If the cerebrocrustacean brain is adapted so that it can remember things easier, then it would be able to amass more knowledge faster, as it would not have to focus as hard on remembering individual factoids, resulting in a much smarter brain over time. Moving into the Galvan brain, like I mentioned earlier, these guys have two brains. One entirely dedicated to basic functions such as breathing, eating, and speech, with the other brain specifically dedicated to intellectual thought. This would explain the supreme intelligence of the Galvan species, as if their brain is so small that it can fire off thoughts at an incredibly fast rate, due to the minimal distance that synaptic signals have to travel, and the brain itself is constantly taking in and relaying information to memory, then this brain would be unimaginably intelligent, as it would not only have to divert intellectual power to intellectual subjects, with no need to waste energy on controlling the heart rate, breathing, and etc., then the rate at which you could accumulate and memorize information would be greatly enhanced, allowing for a much smarter brain in a much smaller span of time. So, at the end of the day, I still honestly can't really nail which one of these two species is actually more intelligent, but what I can say is that Galvans can think faster and memorize easier, while cerebrocrustaceans may be able to actually process vaster quantities of information overall. That is to say that a Galvan could perhaps be smarter, in a short span of time, but a cerebrocrustacean may end up being smarter overall in the long run. But with all that said, that's about all I have to say with this video. I even felt myself lose the points I was trying to make here and there because, well, the brain is an incredibly complicated thing with a lot of big words associated with it that are admittedly a little confusing, even to people who are incredibly passionate about biology like me. But I hope I still managed to communicate why both of these species likely are as smart as they are. Feel free to leave your thoughts in a comment below, or propose your own theories on why you think one of these two species might be smarter than the other. Maybe leave a suggestion for a future video you'd like to see, and with that, let's move into our usual post-video rituals. So, first of all, big shout out to our channel's Thunderbeasts, Riverjoy, Hearn_, Middlemuir, Victor Matusik, Charstream AA, and Plasma6. If you want to help support the channel as well, please consider donating to my PayPal, which has a link in the description, or by becoming a channel member. But with that, let's move into last video's poll. Last time, I asked you guys if you preferred Tetrax, Vilgax, or Myax. Yep, all axe names. With 2,219 total votes, I must say that I'm surprised to see Tetrax coming in first with 67% of the total votes, and Vilgax coming in second with 23% of the votes. Admittedly, I assumed that those two would be the other way around, and I especially didn't think that the gap between them would be so large. But I am unsurprised to see Myax coming in last with only 10% of the total votes, because, well, she's not exactly interesting. Outside of something. Personally, my favourite is Tetrax. I like that he really feels like an uncle to Ben. And though he is definitely very serious and no-nonsense most of the time, their dynamic really does benefit to his relationship with Ben and create some fun back-and-forth scenarios. On top of that, I think their relationship is very well crafted in the sense that it originally feels like Tetrax was very cold and uncaring towards Ben, but over time he really did truly come to care for and appreciate him. But now, let's give a big shout out to everybody who correctly guessed that my favourite was Tetrax. So, shout out to Dwight Norton 3398, a familiar face, Kia 5884, another familiar face, Titan Qman 921, another familiar face, Greater Grievo Beast 55, a new face actually, I don't recognise you from the comment section, Ret Requiem, another familiar face, Nathan T29, another familiar face, and finally another familiar face, Tyler Ferguson 3193. Congratulations to all of you guys for guessing correctly, and it's really nice to see so many people coming back for all my different videos. It really puts a smile on my face, so thank you guys who go on and watch all my videos. Now let's finish things up by moving into this video's poll. This time, I'm going to be asking you guys which type of Ben 10 alien is your favourite. Do you prefer the humanoids, the animalistic aliens, or the truly alien aliens? Leave a comment below or on the poll guessing which one is my favourite for a chance to get a shout out next video, and with that, I'll be seeing you all next time. Adios, fellow heroes!